The roar of fighter jets overhead was a sound Jamal Carter knew like his own heartbeat. At 16, he'd grown up in the shadow of Edwards Air Force Base, where the California desert met dreams of flight. From his bedroom window, he'd watch F-35s slice through the sky, their afterburners painting streaks of fire against the dusk. But today, the base was eerily quiet. No engines, no takeoffs, just a restless hum of frustration that hung over the hangars like a storm cloud. Jamal pedaled his beat-up bike along the chain-link fence, his school backpack bouncing against his shoulders. He wasn't supposed to be here, not this close to the restricted zone, but curiosity had always been his compass. Word around town was that the Air Force's prized prototype, the X-77 Raptor, had grounded the entire base. The jet, a marvel of stealth and speed, was dead on the tarmac, and none of the top engineers, flown in from Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and DARPA, could figure out why. Jamal overheard his mom, a base janitor, muttering about a billion-dollar paperweight, and eggheads scratching their heads. He had to see it for himself. At the fence's edge, where a gap just wide enough for a skinny kid beckoned, Jamal hesitated. Getting caught could mean trouble, big trouble. But something pulled him forward, like the jets pulled his gaze skyward every night. He slipped through, heart pounding, and crouched behind a crate near Hangar 12. There it was, the X-77, sleek and angular, its black fuselage glinting under floodlights. Around it, a dozen engineers in crisp uniforms argued, their voices sharp with frustration. Clipboards, laptops, and diagnostic tools littered the ground like a battlefield of failed ideas. Jamal's eyes traced the jet's lines, his mind racing. He wasn't just a kid with a knack for fixing things, though he'd rebuilt his mom's old Buick engine at 14 and rewired the community center's busted sound system for free. No, Jamal had a gift, one he couldn't explain. Machines spoke to him, not in words but in patterns, vibrations, whispers of what was wrong. He'd lie awake at night, sketching circuits and airflows, teaching himself from library books and YouTube tutorials when school couldn't keep up. Fuel systems clean. One engineer barked, slamming a tablet down. Avionics are green. It's like this thing's cursed. Jamal's gaze locked on a small panel near the jet's rear stabilizers, half hidden by a tangle of cables. Something about it felt off. He couldn't say why, but his fingers itched to touch it. Before he could second-guess himself, he stepped out from behind the crate. Hey. A guard's voice sliced through the night. Kid, what the hell are you doing here? Every head turned. Engineers froze, their faces a mix of confusion and annoyance. Jamal's stomach dropped, but he stood tall, his voice steady. I think I know what's wrong with your jet. Laughter erupted, sharp and dismissive. A gray-haired engineer with a DARPA badge sneered, Go home, kid. This isn't a science fair. But Colonel Maria Alvarez, the base commander, stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. She'd seen Jamal around, trailing his mom during late shifts, always tinkering with something. Let him talk, she said, her tone firm. We're out of options. Jamal swallowed hard, aware of every stare boring into him. There's a panel near the rear stabilizers. It's misaligned, maybe by a millimeter. Could be messing with the airflow sensors, tricking the system into thinking it stalled. Silence. The DARPA engineer scoffed, but Colonel Alvarez raised a hand. Show me. Hard hammering, Jamal approached the jet, the crowd parting like a reluctant sea. He pointed to the panel, his hands steady despite the eyes on him. A technician grabbed a wrench, popped the panel open, and froze. He's right, the tech muttered. The mounting's off. It's throwing the sensor readings into chaos. The engineers scrambled, tools clattering as they realigned the panel. Jamal watched, barely breathing, as they ran diagnostics. Minutes later, the X-77's engines roared to life, a deep, triumphant growl that shook the hangar. The crowd erupted, not in laughter this time, but in cheers. The DARPA engineer's jaw hung slack, and Colonel Alvarez's stern face cracked into a rare smile. But the real turn came the next day. Jamal expected a pat on the back, maybe a quick thanks before being sent home. Instead, Colonel Alvarez called him to her office. You didn't just fix a jet, Jamal, she said, sliding a folder across her desk. You showed us what we're missing: heart, instinct, a fresh perspective. We're starting a youth engineering program, and we want you to lead it. Kids like you, from towns like this, deserve a shot. Jamal's throat tightened. He thought of his mom, working double shifts to keep the lights on, and the kids at school who called him gearhead, like it was an insult. He thought of the jet, silent until he listened to its whisper. I just wanted to help, he said softly. And you did, Alvarez replied. More than you know. That summer, Jamal stood before a group of teens, black, Latino, native, white, kids from the desert towns who'd never dreamed of touching a jet. He taught them to listen to machines, to trust their instincts, to believe they belonged. The base buzzed with new energy, not just from the X-77's restored flights but from the kids who now saw a future beyond the fence point one evening. As Jamal watched an F-35 climb into the stars, his mom joined him, her eyes shining. "You didn't just fix that jet, baby," she whispered. "You fixed something bigger." Jamal smiled, his heart full. He'd come to help a machine, but he'd ended up lifting a community, proving that kindness, courage, and a quiet gift could move mountains or jets. And in that desert night, under a sky alive with possibility, he knew the world was watching, and it would never be the same.